a massive multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical machine, is absolutely terrified that you are watching this video right now. There is a simple, highly researched white powder sitting on the bottom shelf of your local health store that costs less than $2 a week, and it is scientifically proven to permanently reverse age-related brain fog, failing memory, and cognitive decline. The medical establishment has known about the exact biological mechanism of this compound since an obscure, heavily ignored research paper in 1984. Yet they have spent the last 40 years pushing expensive, dangerous, and utterly useless memory pills onto vulnerable seniors instead. Why? Because you simply cannot patent a completely natural biological compound. They want you confused. They want you forgetting your loved ones' names, and they want you completely dependent on their toxic chemical cocktails. Today, I am going to expose exactly what this cheap, life-saving powder is, how the pharmaceutical industry intentionally buried it, and how you can use it to instantly reignite your brain's dying electrical grid. The medical industry is not in the business of curing your cognitive decline. They are in the business of managing your slow, agonizing deterioration. Think about the landscape of modern neurology. When an older adult walks into a clinic complaining of severe brain fog, an inability to focus, or the terrifying sensation that their memory is slipping away, what happens? They are subjected to a battery of patronizing tests, told that this is just a normal part of aging. And then they are handed a prescription for a synthetic drug that barely masks the symptoms while causing a cascade of devastating side effects. The pharmaceutical industry has spent billions of dollars over the last 4 decades trying to convince the public that cognitive decline is solely caused by the buildup of sticky plaques in the brain, known as amyloid beta. They have funneled countless research grants into developing patented synthetic drugs designed to scrub these plaques away. Yet, trial after trial, decade after decade, these expensive miracle drugs have failed spectacularly. Patients take these pills, drain their life savings, and their memories continue to fade. The industry knows their approach is failing, but the profit margins are simply too intoxicating to abandon. A single year of a newly patented Alzheimer's or dementia medication can cost tens of thousands of dollars. It is a recurring revenue stream built entirely on the fear and desperation of aging populations. Now compare that to a naturally occurring, deeply bioavailable powder that costs mere pennies a day. If the public understood that true cognitive restoration did not require a prescription pad, the entire financial foundation of the neurological drug market would collapse overnight. This is why this information is heavily suppressed. This is why your doctor, whose education was likely funded by the very pharmaceutical companies selling these failed drugs, has never mentioned this alternative to you. They have been trained to look for patentable chemical interventions, completely ignoring the fundamental biological reality of how the human brain actually generates and sustains its energy. Before we dive into the exact cellular mechanics of this hidden cure, I must state that I am an independent researcher, not a doctor bought and paid for by a pharmaceutical board. Therefore, while this information is strictly for educational and informational purposes, and you should always consult a medical professional who actually understands advanced nutritional biochemistry before altering your daily routine, I am going to provide you with the unfiltered, uncompromised truth that the clinical establishment refuses to share. You have a right to know how your brain actually works, and you have a right to know how to fix it when it begins to fail. To understand why this $2 powder is the ultimate antidote to brain fog, you must first understand the great lie you have been told about cognitive decline. Brain fog, forgetfulness, and mental exhaustion are not caused by a sudden, mysterious death of your brain cells. Your brain is not simply wearing out like an old pair of shoes. What you are experiencing is a catastrophic, systemic energy crisis at the cellular level. Your brain is an absolute energy glutton. Despite making up only about 2% of your total body weight, it consumes a staggering 20% of your body's entire energy supply. It requires a constant, uninterrupted flow of electrical and chemical power to fire neurotransmitters, form new memories, and maintain the complex neural networks that make you who you are. This cellular energy is currency, and the specific name of that currency is adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. ATP is the fundamental spark of life. Every single time you try to remember a name, every time you try to focus on a conversation, and every time you try to process a complex thought, the mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside your brain cells, must produce and burn ATP. When a molecule of ATP is burned for mental energy, it loses one of its 3 phosphate groups. It is downgraded into a depleted, useless molecule called adenosine diphosphate, or ADP. In a young, healthy brain, this depleted ADP is rapidly recycled back into high-energy ATP, allowing for continuous, crystal-clear mental focus. But as we age, a terrifying biological bottleneck occurs. Our cellular machinery slows down. The mitochondria become sluggish and damaged by oxidative stress. Suddenly, your brain cannot recycle ADP back into ATP fast enough to meet the demands of your daily life. You try to focus, but the energy simply isn't there. The electrical signals misfire. The neural pathways dim. This is exactly what you feel when you experience brain fog. It is the physical sensation of your brain cells suffocating from a lack of usable ATP. You are literally running out of cellular power in real time. The pharmaceutical industry wants to give you synthetic stimulants that whip your exhausted brain cells into working harder, completely ignoring the fact that the cells have no underlying energy to do so. It is like whipping a starving, exhausted horse and expecting it to win a race. It might run for a moment, but it will inevitably collapse. This is where the 1984 research and the decades of suppressed biochemical data that followed it comes into play. Scientists discovered that there is a specific, naturally occurring compound that acts as an emergency, high-speed phosphate donor. When this compound is introduced into the brain, it completely bypasses the sluggish, age-damaged mitochondrial machinery. It actively hunts down the depleted, useless ADP molecules and forcibly donates a phosphate group to them, instantly transforming them back into high-energy, usable ATP. This means that instead of waiting for your aging body to slowly generate energy, this compound provides a massive, instantaneous reservoir of backup power directly to your neurons. It is a cellular defibrillator for your cognitive function. When your brain has an abundant, overflowing supply of this compound, brain fog is biologically impossible. Your neurons have all the energy they need to repair synapses, clear out metabolic waste, and fire signals at the speed of youth. The industry buried this mechanism because it treats the root cause, cellular energy depletion, rather than slapping a patented chemical bandage over the symptoms. So what is this miraculous, heavily suppressed substance? It is a naturally occurring organic acid derivative called creatine monohydrate. Now wait, if you have heard of creatine before, your mind is likely immediately jumping to images of massive steroid-injected bodybuilders and fitness magazines. And that right there is the greatest tragedy and the most brilliant smokescreen in modern nutritional history. In the early 1990s, the sports supplement industry hijacked creatine. They realized that the exact same ATP recycling mechanism that powers brain cells also powers skeletal muscle tissue. The fitness industry branded creatine exclusively as a muscle-building powder for young male athletes, wrapping it in aggressive neon packaging. The pharmaceutical industry was perfectly happy to let this happen. As long as creatine was viewed as a meathead gym supplement, no senior citizen suffering from devastating cognitive decline would ever think to look for it. The truth was hidden in plain sight. Creatine is not a steroid. It is not an artificial stimulant. It is a fundamental, life-sustaining compound synthesized from 3 amino acids: arginine, glycine, and methionine. Your body produces a small amount of it naturally, and you absorb trace amounts from eating red meat and fish. However, as you age, your body's natural production of creatine plummets drastically, and your digestive system becomes highly inefficient at extracting it from food. By the time you are 60 years old, your brain is effectively operating in a state of chronic creatine deficiency. You are mentally starving. To permanently reverse this deficiency and restore your cognitive energy, you must supplement with pure, isolated creatine monohydrate. But you cannot simply buy the cheapest tub of powder from a discount warehouse. The preparation, the sourcing, and the exact method of administration are absolutely critical, and doing it incorrectly will result in zero cognitive benefits and severe gastrointestinal distress. First, let us discuss sourcing. You must completely ignore any heavily marketed, multi-ingredient pre-workout blends or expensive liquid serums. You are looking for one ingredient and one ingredient only: 100% pure, micronized creatine monohydrate. The word micronized is non-negotiable. This means the powder has been milled into microscopic particles, making it infinitely easier for your aging digestive tract to absorb and vastly increasing its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier. Furthermore, you must verify the purity of the powder. Because the supplement industry is loosely regulated, cheap creatine imported from overseas is often contaminated with heavy metals like lead and arsenic, or toxic chemical byproducts from the manufacturing process like dicyandiamide. You must look for a product that explicitly states it is CrePure, which is a patented, ultra-pure form of creatine manufactured in a highly regulated, dedicated facility in Germany. It costs slightly more than the cheap imports, but we are still talking about an investment of mere pennies a day for complete mental clarity. Once you have sourced the highest quality pharmaceutical-grade micronized creatine monohydrate, you must understand the exact science of preparation. Creatine is notoriously stubborn when it comes to dissolving in liquids. If you simply dump a scoop into a glass of cold water and stir it, the powder will sink to the bottom like sand. If you drink it in this gritty, undissolved state, it will pull excess water directly into your intestines, leading to severe bloating, cramping, and urgent trips to the bathroom. More importantly, undissolved creatine will not be absorbed into your bloodstream, meaning it will never reach your starving brain cells. Here is the exact clinical preparation method to ensure maximum neurological absorption. Every morning upon waking, you will take exactly 5 grams of micronized creatine monohydrate. This is roughly the equivalent of 1 level teaspoon. You must dissolve this powder in a glass of very warm, not boiling, but comfortably warm water or herbal tea. The heat significantly increases the solubility of the compound. Stir the mixture vigorously for at least 60 seconds until the liquid is completely clear and transparent. If you see any white particles floating or resting at the bottom, it is not fully dissolved. Keep stirring. To exponentially increase the speed at which this creatine is transported across the blood-brain barrier, you must consume it alongside a small strategic spike in insulin. Insulin acts as a cellular key, unlocking the doors of your brain cells and actively pulling the creatine inside. Therefore, you should consume your warm creatine solution alongside a small amount of simple carbohydrates, a small handful of berries, half of an apple, or simply dissolving the powder in warm, natural fruit juice instead of water will create the exact biological transport environment needed to flood your neurons with energy. Do not mix your creatine with heavy, fatty meals, as fats will significantly delay the gastric emptying process and destroy the rapid absorption timeline. Now, let us map out the exact timeline of cognitive restoration. What actually happens to your brain when you begin this protocol? On day 1, you will not feel a sudden, jittery burst of energy like you would from a cup of strong coffee. Caffeine is a central nervous system stimulant that masks fatigue by blocking the brain's tiredness receptors. Creatine does not mask fatigue. It actively eradicates it at the cellular level. On the first day, the dissolved creatine enters your bloodstream and begins crossing the blood-brain barrier. Your brain cells, which have been starved of energy for decades, begin aggressively absorbing the compound. The cellular saturation process has begun. By day 7, you will reach the first major milestone of bioenergetic restoration. The ATP recycling process in your neurons has accelerated significantly. The most immediate and profound sensation you will experience during this first week is a drastic reduction in mental fatigue. You will notice that the dense, suffocating fog that usually rolls into your mind around 2 or 3 in the afternoon has vanished. You will be able to read a book, hold a complex conversation, or balance your checkbook without feeling that familiar, overwhelming urge to close your eyes and rest. Your brain is finally producing enough ATP to sustain prolonged mental effort without crashing. By day 14, the structural repair of your neural pathways begins to manifest. This is when the memory restoration phase activates. The frustrating moments of walking into a room and forgetting why you are there will decrease dramatically. You will find yourself recalling names, dates, and words with a speed and fluidity that you likely haven't experienced in 20 years. This is because your neurons now have the excess energy required to rapidly fire signals across the synaptic gaps. The electrical connections are strengthening. You are no longer just surviving your day. You are actively engaging with your reality with a sharp, vibrant clarity. By day 30, your brain will achieve total cellular creatine saturation. You have effectively reset the bioenergetic clock of your mind. At this point, the changes are not just subjective, they are clinically measurable. Your working memory capacity will have expanded. Your ability to process complex information and filter out distractions will be sharp and precise. The underlying anxiety and depressive moods that often accompany cognitive decline, which are frequently just the emotional symptoms of a brain struggling to generate power, will lift, replaced by a profound sense of grounded, stable mental energy. You have successfully bypassed the failing mitochondrial machinery of your age and provided your brain with a permanent alternative power source. To maintain these incredible results, you do not need to cycle off this compound. You simply continue taking your 5 grams dissolved in warm liquid every single morning for the rest of your life. It is the ultimate low-cost insurance policy against the horrors of cognitive decline, completely subverting the pharmaceutical industry's predatory business model. The medical establishment wants you to believe that losing your mind is an inevitable tragedy of time. They want you compliant, fearful, and dependent on their failed chemical interventions. But true health is not found in a patented pill, and it is certainly not found in surrendering to age. True health is found in understanding the raw, unvarnished biology of your own body and providing it with the exact natural fuels it desperately needs to heal itself. If this deep dive into the hidden science of bioenergetics has opened your eyes. If you are ready to take absolute control of your cognitive destiny and reject the pharmaceutical narrative of inevitable decline, then you need to take action right now. Hit the subscribe button below so you never miss another explosive, uncensored breakthrough in true biological healing. I have also placed direct, highly vetted links in the description box below to the exact, pure, German-sourced, Pure creatine monohydrate that passes every single heavy metal and purity standard required for safe, daily neurological use. Do not gamble with cheap, contaminated imports from the grocery store. Check the description, get the right compound, and start reigniting your brain's energy grid tomorrow morning.